Setting up. Thank you so much, Pam or Tanya, whichever one of you did that. So welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about online engagement. We're going to talk about how to set up discussions and peer review to encourage engagement among our students and also some faculty to student engagement. Today I have Tanya Malone as my moderator. She'll be taking a look at the chat and answering your questions in chat as we go along. And if you've come to some of the other workshops, I'm going to do this just a slight bit differently today. Instead of jumping right into Canvas and doing some demonstrations, I'm going to start off by talking about why we want to engage our students online and giving you a little bit of background and some research that's been done on student engagement in the online arena and how that leads to student satisfaction and student persistence in online courses. And then we're going to jump in and I'll show you a few fun things you can do with online discussions. So that's kind of our agenda for today. We'll be going for the next 50 minutes. I'm going to try and give a little bit of time at the end for some question and answer. Okay, so I want to start off with, this was a blog post that someone named Kevin Cook did for the Public Policy Institute of California. His blog post was on 5 factors for successful online learning. And this was actually done, it was a study that was done from the California Community College system. And the study that was done led to a national award last year for closing the gap between student success and student satisfaction and persistence in online courses versus face-to-face courses. And I'm particularly proud of the work that was done because I was part of it. I was part of this study, and I was part of the ability for community colleges to close the gap factor in student success for online courses. So these are some of the things that we pulled out of our research, that we pulled out of what we learned. So some of the things we're using a systems approach to course design, making sure that proper professional development was set up for faculty when they were developing online courses, setting student expectations for online courses, letting them know that online courses were not easier than normal or face-to-face courses, and that the academic rigor was expected to be equal to face-to-face courses. But it's the fourth item that we came up with in our research and in our practice that was particularly important. And this is the one I want to focus on for today. And that is that communication is essential to foster a constructive learning environment and positive peer interactions. Online courses that encourage regular and effective communication among students and between students and their instructor develop a better sense of community and improve the likelihood of student success. This was so key to our findings. And really, it's where we focused the majority of our work over the past, especially the past 4 years, was to create the sense of environment. In an online course, because we're not sitting face to face, we don't see people's reactions, we don't see people's responses, and our brains are really geared towards those responses. We often, our brains will look at this environment and say, I don't get it, I don't understand it. And it becomes this cold and kind of distant environment where it's really taking place in the cognitive realm instead of the affective realm. So we really want to bring in some of that affective realm back into online teaching and learning. And some of the ways we can do that are with discussions, with activities that engage students with one another, places where we can positively encourage our students, places where we can invite students into that active learning environment. And then the online tools was the last one that we looked at, and we've given a lot of information back into the learning management systems that are out there to make sure that not only the tools are up to par, but also that faculty are using those tools. And for the community, for the CSU, so I've been working with the CSU for the past oh boy, almost 8 years now. And the CSU has some fantastic standards as well. There's a lot of back and forth integration between and collaboration between the CSUs and the community colleges. And for those of you interested, we have what's called the Quality Learning and Teaching Rubric. And thank you, Tanya, for putting that note in the chat right now. So Tanya just posted a link to this. The section 4 is all about that active engagement and communication with students, and making sure that students are engaging with one another and with the faculty in the course. And I encourage you to check out that rubric for quality teaching and learning as you are creating your course, as you're managing your course along the way. It has some great examples of different things you can do. And I pulled out like 3 of the core examples there that have to do with creating discussions, creating engagement online and interaction online between students and faculty and students. So these 3 core areas are some of the areas I'm going to be addressing today as we go along. So that's the from the Quality Teaching and Learning rubric. And then I also want to point out that not only are these good practices, but truly when we look at the CSU standards for online education, this goes back to the Academic Senate white paper on online education. And again, thank you, Tanya, for posting that link in the chat. So what they're saying here is that frequent and effective faculty engagement in the life of the course is #1 on the best practices list. Authorities agree, and this goes back to a lot of different studies that were done at the time, and you can see at the bottom of the screen, it talks about some of those studies. Authorities agree that faculty need to interact with students often, both mentoring and challenging student learners. Ultimately, it is the role of the instructor to oversee the course from beginning to end. Not showing up for class in the online environment leads to confused and frustrated learners. Online classes do not manage themselves. Instructors actively participate in all dimensions of the online classroom. So where this particularly comes into play is for a while, we saw some real problems within for-profit institutions where they were putting out kind of self-paced, self-taught courses and claiming them to be online courses. They were very inefficient. They were not very good for students. There was a lot of predatory aspects to them where students were paying a lot of money for classes that really did not engage them and did not foster good learning environments. We are in a situation where we're having to make a rapid change, rapid transition, and we fully understand that. Right now, we are really not so much planning for quality online education as we are moving our face-to-face courses into an online environment. So one of my goals for today is not to overwhelm you with these ideas, but to give you several easy to establish, high-touch, high-impact activities that will engage your students directly with one another, engage them with you as the teacher in the course, and help you to create an environment where students can mentor one another and where you can comment on that mentoring without adding a huge burden to your already overwhelming workload, especially as we are making this transition into the online environment. And I do see, Jennifer, you asked a really great timely question with synchronous versus asynchronous delivery. And we are going to probably see a lot of synchronous delivery where we do have faculty engaging with students in online Zoom sessions. That is a really decent approach to making this rapid transition. To be honest with you, so I've been teaching online for 20 years now. I've been teaching online continuously for 20 years. So I started in 2000 with an online course at Cuesta College. I have taught for 6 different institutions online. And for any given year, at this point, my primary teaching, I teach 1 online class still at Cuesta College. So that is my continuous teaching. I teach it year round. I teach it about 5 times. It's the same course. I have moved from that synchronous environment, I moved that into my office hours because I find that that's a really good place to have that synchronous environment. But I found that students really do not want to sit and listen to me lecture to them online, even in a synchronous environment. They tend to tune out. They tend to want to do things on their own. A lot of them, especially when I'm talking about a truly online course, a lot of them are taking that truly online course because they have other things going on in their lives, and that they take an online course because it fits with their lifestyle. We need to understand that our students are going back to family situations where their families may not be able to afford broadband. They may have to drive out somewhere to a location where they can pick up internet connection. They may not have a computer at home, or they may be competing with that computer or competing with siblings for that computer time. So for all of these reasons, I think the more that you can put into the online environment, the better. In a perfect world, our students would be sitting at a computer with broadband access and all the time in the world. Their parents may have just lost jobs. They may have to go work to help support the family. I think we really do need to take into consideration that these are unusual times and our students are going through unusual processes. So again, the more that we can make these available to our students, if we can allow our students to perhaps miss a synchronous demonstration, and we can instead videotape or record it and then make it available for students later. I think those types of accommodations, we are really going to have to keep that in mind for spring quarter. So thank you for bringing that up, Jennifer. That's an awesome question. So yeah, while you're doing those synchronous recordings, keep in mind your student situation. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears real quick, and I'm going to talk about the basics of setting up an online discussion. We're going to do this just pretty quickly. I'm going to walk you through how to set up an online discussion, and then I'm going to show you particular types of discussions in several different demos that you'll be able to do in your courses, and do them fairly quickly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my dashboard, and I'm just going to pick a course. So I'm going to, go up to my Introduction to Online Teaching and Learning course. I teach this course every summer. If there's a lot of interest in teaching this course and taking this course from people after teaching your first quarter online, I will be hopefully delivering this online 4-week fully online bootcamp course throughout the year for anyone who's interested. So to set up a basic discussion, I'm going to go into my discussions link. And I could do this from a module if I want to say, put it into my week 2 module. I could click on this plus button and I could add a discussion right from here. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to add it from your discussions link. That way you can kind of see what discussions are already out there that you've created. And I'm going to create a basic discussion. So this discussion, I'm going to call this my Chapter 6 Q&A discussion. So if students have questions, they can, about Chapter 6 in their reading, they can post it here. So that's my title. I'm going to add instructions here. If I want to add a link to something that I've done, like let's say I have a page on Chapter 6, I can just add a link in there. That way, link for review. If I want to add a file, I can do it from files that I have. I want to remind them of our accessibility guidelines. And then if I want to put an image in, I can do that as well. So let's say, I've got this image right here. I just click on it. I'm not going to do that right now, but just click an image and that will go in there. So all different things that you can put in at the top of a discussion. As I scroll down, I want it to go to all sections. That means that this is going to go into my course to everyone. If I wanted to just have this go to a specific group, I could do that as well. If I want to add an attachment, so let's say that I have a Word document that has, like a chapter guide or something like that they can fill out first, and that will help them with this discussion, I could add that. If I want to allow threaded replies, that will allow my students to respond to one another, and it will indent those responses. So I could do that. If I want my users to post before seeing replies, that means they have to come up with a unique post first, and they will post their initial post before they see anyone else's. So that might be a nice way to prevent students from going through and reading everybody else's post first and then coming up with their own ideas, if you want them to post before seeing replies. If you're doing this as a podcast feed, that's a whole nother option. I don't think anyone's going to be doing that. If I want this to be graded, I can click that link. And all of a sudden, I've got some other options in here. So if I've set up my groups, I could make this a group discussion. That means that only those groups, people within certain groups are going to be able to see one another's posts. I can make this 10 points here, display it as points. And then if I've set up my assignment groups, and if you're interested in learning about assignment groups, I would go back to the workshop that was done yesterday on creating assessments, and it talks all about assignment groups. But I can set this up in my quizzes group, in my discussions group. And when it goes in the discussions group, especially if I've created a weight on all of the discussions, so I've got weighted grading in there, that makes sure that this discussion goes into the weighted grading, so that 10 points possible goes into the weighted grading. I'm going to show you peer reviews in a little bit, but this is where you would check it off if you had a peer review for a discussion. I'm actually going to show you a peer review in an assignment, but this is where you would do a discussion peer review. And then I can assign it to everybody. And let's say I just found out that one of my students is taking care of a sick parent, and they need a little extra time. So I'm going to pick on Valanche because he's awesome. So if I assign this to Valanche, I could actually change a due date. So let's say for the majority of the class, I give them until Friday to complete this. For Valanche, because I know that he has a lot going on, I'm going to give him until Monday to complete it. So you can pull out one student or two students in particular and give them their own due dates if you know that they have special circumstances. So that's the basics of setting up a discussion board. I'm going to hit the save button, and I'm going to show you what it looks like as soon as this comes up. So there's my discussion board. Because I set it up and because I have my profile set with my photo, it shows my picture in here. As people respond to this, it will show their picture if they have their account set up as well. And I do encourage you to have your students fill out their profile with photos or with a photo of their pet or something that distinguishes them, so that they can have a little better sense of what the community looks like. Again, if they don't want to put a particular photo of themselves, have them do something, kind of fun and creative. They can draw a picture, they can put a picture of a flower or a dog or whatever they want. So this is what it looks like when this is complete. So that's the basics of setting up a discussion. Super easy. So let's look at different types of discussions, because discussions can take place throughout class, and really discussions should take place throughout class. You can do discussions at the beginning, middle, and the end of a course. So let's take a look at the beginning of the course. What kind of discussions should you put at the beginning of a course? I'm going to give you a link in just a moment to a place where you can find some of these ideas. But at the beginning of the course, you might want to do either an introduction discussion or an icebreaker activity. And there's a little difference between these two, and I want to kind of go over real quickly the difference. So when you have an introduction discussion, you're really talking about introduce yourself to the community. Give us a sense of who you are, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us something personal. You want to keep in mind FERPA, you want to keep in mind student privacy. Keep in mind things like, if you want to say, there's a temptation to say, do you think you're more like your mom or your dad? Well, if a student is in a foster system, or if they are adopted, or if they are in a family where they don't have either a mother or a father, it's going to put them in an awkward situation. So be very cautious about the questions that you ask. So I'm giving you a few questions that actually pertain to the course that you're teaching. And these are good, kind of safe questions to ask students about their learning goals. What do you hope to learn in the class? What prior knowledge or experience do you bring to the learning community? You would be very surprised. I teach in the College of Business. I teach a social media marketing course. I found out just by asking this question, 3 of my students are working as the social media marketing directors for local companies. So they brought a tremendous amount of information into the class. I immediately thought to myself, okay, these are my TAs. So that was really good to know right up at the front of the class. And how is this class going to help your career goals? It was interesting to find out that some of my students had career goals in fields that I would not have imagined. And like one of them wanted to become a rodeo director. Well, actually rodeo director, that fits really well with social media. She could really use social media skills in her field in directing rodeo events. So that was pretty cool. If you're doing this type of discussion, you really want to have a strong presence in the course. You want to respond to people as they're posting. I keep a cheat sheet of responses that I give on a quarterly basis, or as for my course at Cuesta, a semester-long basis. I've been doing this for a while, so there's a lot of times I'll have like standard responses. Hey, that is so awesome. I would really like to learn more about blank. Copy, paste, fill in the blank. It gives me, it's a little bit of a way to save on my my keystrokes. After a while, you can kind of collect some of those shortcuts to present, to giving each student a response. And then I have like 6 different ways of saying, I'm really glad you're in the class. And I rotate between all those 6 ways so that I don't have to keep coming up with new ways to welcome students into my class. But definitely if you're doing an introduction discussion, respond to each of the students, even if it's just a sentence or 2. The other thing you can do is create an icebreaker activity. This is a very different type of discussion because you are trying to get the students to really engage with one another. So, and you're bringing humor into the class, you're giving them a scenario that they need to respond to, and you are showcasing something unusual about themselves or asking them to get involved with their fellow students in a really creative way. You might want to engage with the students as yourself in the icebreaker, but I would actually say in this case, you're really pushing this out more to your students than to yourself. And I'm going to give a shameless plug right now. We have launched a course in the Canvas community, out in the Cal Poly community. If you go to this course, and thank you so much, Tanya, for posting that link out there, you can actually see 3 different getting to know you icebreaker discussions that you can copy and paste into your course today. So like I said, I want to make sure that this is quick and easy for you to do and that you can apply this to your course right away, get you up and running. So if you join that class, you can see exactly what you can do with that. And scrolling up through the questions, yes, John, I'm going to show you exactly how that looks like in the SpeedGrader. So hang in there till the very end. That's the last thing I'm going to show you. All right, so that's my shameless plug for the course that's in Canvas right now. It will give you ideas on introductions and icebreakers. So that was the beginning of the course. I definitely recommend that you start off your course with one of those 2 things, either an introduction thread or an icebreaker thread. Let's jump to the middle of the class. So along the way, middle meaning, every few weeks maybe, or every 2 weeks, or you might even want to do this every week. Create a discussion asking students, what are you struggling with? Ask a question. Maybe it's a Q&A forum, but ask a specific question. What can I help you with? What concept have I made muddy? And put it on yourself. I always tell the students, if the students didn't learn, the teacher didn't teach. I'm gonna take, the buck stops with me. I'm gonna take responsibility for you not learning if I didn't say it correctly. So tell me what your muddiest point is. If 90% of my students have the same muddiest point, I know that I need to go back in and do a little bit better job of teaching that. If I only have one or two, okay, I probably taught it well and that student maybe missed something. What resources can I offer all of you that would help? There's a lot of just-in-time learning resources out there. Khan Academy, YouTube is amazing. MIT has some great things. The Merlot site has some great resources. There's all sorts of, there's, we can throw those out there for you. I believe that they're in some of the resources that are out there already on in our Canvas resources or our online courses. So what are some resources? Ask your students, what are some resources I can give you on certain topics? What are some videos I can produce that would show you this concept quickly? And then ask your students for their favorite aha moment. When did the light bulb go on for you about this? Share with us how that worked for you. Or create a concept, explain like I'm 5. Pick a topic in class and explain it to everybody like we're 5-year-olds. That's a lot of fun. And then students can hit the like button on their post. If you set a like button, and I'll show you that again. If you set liking in discussions, students can either say, yes, I like this, or students can say, hey, you're explaining it to me like I'm 12. Let's go back to a 5-year-old level. So it's a lot of fun. Students have to explain it as if someone's 5. They could even explain it to a 5-year-old in their home if they have it and see if the 5-year-old understands. So what helped you understand something? Or create a Q&A discussion and say, post a question here. And then sometimes what you can do is say, if a student responds, I may give them extra credit. And you give like 1 or 2 points extra credit, don't make it a lot. But if you see someone is consistently posting awesome responses to other students' questions, and they are difficult questions that require really insightful responses, boy, give that student extra credit and just see them as your helping hand. Crowdsourcing all the questions is an awesome way to go. And then I saw this at a conference I was at where a math teacher had students upload videos of how they were solving problems. And then other students would respond with videos and say, here's where I see that you made an error. It's a common error. And here's where you need to do this differently to be able to to complete the equation. You can probably apply that to several different topics. And Tanya, yes, thank you so much for talking about Flipgrid. I will actually show you Flipgrid and what that looks like at the very end if I have time, because I use it in my classes, and students can respond to each other's videos there too. It's an awesome tool. Okay, so I'm going to show this to you right now. Let's see. Oh, peer reviews. Yes, that's what I'm going to show you right now. So peer reviews is a great thing to do kind of in the middle of class. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go into, oh, actually, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to show you an icebreaker. So I'm going to start off with, I have this anytime, anywhere icebreaker. And I'm just going to show you real quick. This is an example of an icebreaker, and I do apologize. I meant to show this to you earlier. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this to show you the grading. So right now, I have this icebreaker set up. And this is going to go back to John's question. So let's make this a graded discussion. First of all, I'm going to click this button right here. So I showed you super quickly before how to do a graded discussion. So this is graded. I'm going to add 10 points to this. Everything else looks good. I'm going to make this due on Friday. And if I hit the save button, you will see that my icebreaker activity now up above says this is a graded discussion, 10 points. And like I said, at the end of this presentation, I am going to show you how to do the grading in the speed grader. I'm going to bring that up for you. So that's adding the grades to a discussion. Okay, and now what I want to do is show you what it looks like when you have a peer review. So with peer reviews, this is very much like a discussion in the sense that students are interacting with one another, but, and you can apply it to a discussion, but I'm actually going to apply this to a file upload assignment. So this is coming directly out of one of the courses I teach, and this is my Introduction to Online Teaching and Learning course, where I ask faculty to create a Dear Online Students letter. And this is a welcome letter that they send to their students prior to the start of class. And I'm going to show you. So let's say you have an activity that your students are uploading files. So I'm going to show you how to make it a peer-reviewed activity. So I have this Dear Online Students activity. And what I've done is I've asked them to upload a file. And they're going to upload a file. And what I've done is I've made sure that there is a rubric attached to this. And this is really important when you do peer reviews. I like to use rubrics in peer reviews. If you want to know how to do a rubric, take a look. One of yesterday's workshops, we did talk about creating rubrics. And I believe that's under assessments workshop. We talked about creating rubrics. So I've created a rubric. And this is my rubric. And so I'm going to make this a peer review activity. So I've already got the activities, all of my instructions in there, so they know exactly what they're going to be evaluated on. And I've got my rubric set up. So I'm going to edit this to turn it into a peer reviewed activity. So as I scroll down, this is going to look fairly familiar to you. So I made it 40 points. Because this is an assignment and not a discussion, I put it in the assignments group. I've got everything displayed as points. The submission type for assignments, I can create a number of different submission types. In this case, I want them to either type directly into a box in Canvas, and that's okay, or they can copy and paste into a box, or they can do a file upload. If they do a file upload, Canvas will auto-magically change it into a PDF view in the window, in the grading window, so people can see it. Here's where I will require peer reviews, right here. So I'm going to go ahead and check off that box. And I can manually assign peer reviews if I want to, but if I have 40 students in my class, that's a lot of manually assigning peer reviews. Something much, much easier for me is to go ahead and click this button that will auto-magically, I like the word automagic instead of automatic. It will automatically assign peer reviews. And I want my students to do 2 peer reviews per user. And I have to give a date. Now, if my assignment ends on, let's change this date. Let's say my assignment ends, and we're going to come back into March. Okay, let's say I give them until the 26th to be able to upload their assignment. So I want them to upload it at 11 o'clock p.m. So the system is going to start assigning the reviews. We want it to assign it after they've uploaded those reviews. I'm going to ask it to assign those reviews on the 27th at 8 o'clock in the morning. And the reason I want to have it do that is because I am going to guess that some people are not going to put their assignment in until a little late. And I don't want to cut them off from having those peer reviews. So if I have this set to 11 o'clock and I have this set at March 26th at 11:01, then none of my late people will get a peer review. It will tell me that they turned it in late, but I still want to give them that little grace period to be able to turn it in so they are assigned a reviewer. So, and assigned peers to review. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And this now becomes a peer-reviewed assignment. And if I click on the peer reviews, it tells me everyone who's in the class. And Thomas and Valanche, I'm going to apologize to you in advance because I know you guys are in here as test students and you did not realize that you were going to be famous. Both of these guys are awesome, amazing people. So, you know, they're famous now. So you can see right now that there's nobody assigned to their review yet because we haven't gone to that date yet where the reviews are going to be assigned. Once we pass that March 27th date, they will be automatically assigned peers to review. But if I did want to manually give them a peer to review, I could simply do that here. So I would have them review each other, just like this. And you'll see that this name is grayed out because Valanche cannot review himself, but he can certainly review Thomas. So there we go. Okay, so now they have peers to review. So that's the manual process. That's how easy a peer review is to set up. And now let me show you what it looks like when it has actually been completed. So here is a real peer review that I've done in Canvas for the last several years with some of my students. And I do this with my Introduction to Online Teaching and Learning course that I do during the summer. So they've, at this point, I'm going to show you screenshots. Because this is from a live class, I do not want to put these people, put their names out there without their permission. So here is my live class. So I'm going to show you what it looks like after the peer reviews have been assigned. So you can see that in this first top example, and remember, this looks very much like the class that I just showed you right here, right? So I've just grayed out or blurred out the names in this course, just so you can't see them. So in this top example, I have students who turned in work. They were assigned to peers, and I can tell just visually that they completed the reviews because I can see those check marks there. I can see that wherever they completed a review after, you know, the time limit has passed, they have completed those reviews. There's the check marks. In the middle examples, I can see that the student did not turn in their work. So this is one of the students that did not even turn it in during the grace period. And because Canvas only assigns peers to people who turn in the work, they were not assigned peers. This person was actually absent through the entire time this was going on, and therefore was not assigned anybody. So we didn't have two people sitting out there waiting for reviews that never got them. So that was a good thing. Now, if that person did come in after the fact, I could manually assign them somebody else. And typically when that happens, I manually assign them somebody else that turned their work in late. Because, you know, that's kind of what you get, right? Okay, so, and in the bottom example, I have a student who turned in their work. They were assigned peer reviews, but they failed to review them, and you can tell because I have those little exclamation points there. And when I go to see the actual review that they left, oops, there we go. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of a screen issue here. And I just, let's see if I can do this correctly here. Moving screens around. Okay. What I would do is I would actually click on this. Oh dear, my internet connection is unstable. Okay. Let's see, let me know in the chat if you still see me. Okay, awesome, good. Okay, so what I'm looking at right now, if there was a submission, I would see it here. If there were comments, I would see it here. So this is basically my view of what's going on with the grading. And if I hit show results, I would see the student's submission for the rubric. So the student can fill out the rubric for one another. And that's the great thing, is because I've created this rubric, the students see the rubric and they're using a rubric to grade. And then the students can also post comments at the bottom of the screen for one another. So that's what it looks like. I've got just one more quick thing in the last couple minutes. Oh, and Roberta asked if a student fails to review their assigned partner. No, if they, you can actually go in and reassign that partner to somebody else. So you can do that really quickly on the fly. And it does require that you are in there being very vigilant in the first, day or half a day. And I always give them at least a day and a half to do the peer reviews. But Roberta, yes, you want to give them specific time frames for going in there and starting their reviews. And then you can reassign somebody a review just in case. Roberta, no, because there's ways that you can contact a student and say, hey, I'm going to swap out a couple reviews. Don't do this review, do another one. So talk to me about it. There's definitely ways, there's best practices for that. And I can see, yes, you have to be very vigilant. It's also important to set up really specific timeframes. Students must confirm that they are going to be doing the reviews within the first half day. Lots of other things like that. There's some best practices. I'll see if I can get a page out there on best practices. Okay. John, how does a student get credit for the review? So you can actually build that into the rubric. That's what I do, is I have an additional 5 points for each peer review they do. And they can get up to 5 points for each peer review, or however that works in. It might be 100 points for your class, but you can definitely do that as well. And I build it right into that same rubric that they're using. I tell them ignore the peer review parts, or the credit for the review. That's for me to give you. It works out great. I'll put out a best practices page out there somewhere. And just like I promised, I'm going to move on quickly here so that I can show you grading live, but I'm going to say real quickly to end a class, because we talked about beginning, middle, and end. So some things that you can do for an end of the class discussion. Go back to week 1, students, and reread what your goals were for the class. And now come to week 10 and tell me if you learned what you wanted to learn. Or go out of your way to thank somebody. Have a gratitude discussion at the end of the class. Have a note to next quarter students. Post to next quarter students, advising them on how to succeed in the class. So things that give kind of a meta-cognitive approach to what did you learn about the class. Those are great ways to hold end of the class discussions. Have a feedback forum. The quiz tool, you can do ungraded surveys. Have a feedback forum for you. Have your students tell you what worked really well. What do you think could work better in the next class? Ask them questions, have them give you feedback. It's a great way for students to feel like they are part of that learning experience and helping to build into the next class. I do this for every class I teach. And then at the beginning of the class, I let the students know this class has evolved because of great feedback from last quarter's students. Here's what I did to change the class because of input I had from last quarter. And I invite your feedback for this quarter so I can improve on the class even more. And good timing. Okay, so we're going to go into my very last demo here, and I'm going to show you a live demo of the SpeedGrader. So let's see, and I'm going to go back into my discussions and make sure I'm in the right class. Let's see here. Sorry, I need to make sure I'm in the right class for this activity. So I'm going to go into our December 19 workshop shell. This is a class that we did in December. And I'm going to go into the discussions that we had, and I'm going to show you what it looks like to grade a discussion. And in my discussions, let's see, where did I put it? Here we go. I have a discussion that I asked my students to do on the new gradebook in Canvas. So Canvas launched a new gradebook, and I asked them, and I said, please discuss the differences between the old and new gradebook, provide a thoughtful, fact-based evaluation that is not plagiarized from the Canvas guides. And then, and this is really key, when you do a response prompt, have them say something more than just respond to. So I had reply to 2 others and comment about whether you might find the use the feature, and reference their post, and if possible, provide relevant information from the office. As you can guess, this is kind of a fun fake assignment. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to go into the SpeedGrader. So this is how you grade a discussion. So I go into the SpeedGrader, and it's going to pull up at the very top, if I have it set up to show me, I can show it by student name, I can show it by the date that they submitted, or I can show it by the submission status, those that need grading first. Now, because I've already gone in and done some things to this, I'm going to leave it as is because, actually, let's see. I'm going to go in and grade Samuels. So, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm going to grade Adam. So let's do that one more time. I'm going to change it to needs grading. So it's going to show me I've got Evan needs grading. Yeah. Okay, I thought so. So because I've gone in and I've made some changes, here we go. Adam is at the very top here. So I'm going to grade Adam's discussion post first. And you'll see that my rubric comes up. Now, because I've kind of monkeyed around with this a little bit, it's giving me a different rubric than I would have, a different rubric view. But I'm going to look through, and here I see Adam's post. Adam is one of our awesome students, by the way. So I see his post, but look at this. I also see his responses. And in his responses, I can see that he posted something from the office. This is good. So he completed this post. He did everything he was supposed to do according to the rubric. So, and look at this, I can drag this rubric window open. Make sure I can drag this. Of course, I'm mouse challenged now. Let's see if I can get this. Okay, well, trust me on this one, I'm mouse challenged at the moment, but you can drag that window open. So I'm gonna start giving him full points. Let's see if I can do it now. There we go, now I'm dragging it over. And let's say that for response number 2, I wasn't totally happy with his response. So I'm not gonna give it the full 750 points. Let's say I'm gonna give it 400 points, but that removes these criteria because if I give it 375, you know, but I wanna give him more points than that, 400 points, I can actually add a little comment. I gave you 400 points because, you know, I can give him a comment, and then I just hit save button. And as he looks at his review, he can see that he got full marks, response, and then comments in here for something that's less than the full marks. So let's see how I did on this presentation with 3 minutes left. Yeah, I did the end. I did the live demo. Oh, yeah, I was going to do Flipgrids. You know what? Flipgrids, come to my office hour, one of my office hours. Talk to us about Flipgrids. Flipgrid is basically the opportunity yeah, I'd have to show you a live class right now. I'm not going to do that. But Flipgrid is a great way to share video or have students share videos. I'm going to look at the group chat real quick and see if there's any other questions. Joan, he used rubrics with peer reviews, but only assign 1 peer review per. Can multiple peer reviews use a rubric? Yes. You can't use multiple rubrics for a peer review, but you can have multiple users use the same rubric, if I'm understanding your question. Yes, each peer reviewer sees a blank rubric, and as they fill it out, you can see each rubric associated with that person's name. So if you've had 2 people review, you will see each of the rubrics they submitted for that person. Yes. Any other questions real quick before we go? It has been an absolute pleasure being here with all of you. I hope to see you this afternoon in the last sessions. I'll be a participant in those. And have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Tanya, for saving the chat. All right, have a great day.